She was resting her head on my chest. We were watching a kids' movie. My 15-year-old daughter, bored out of her mind, curled up next to me and slowly drifted off to sleep. It was nothing new. She's always been a cuddler. Ever since she was little, she's needed that closeness, that comfort, and I've always welcomed it. I'm a cuddler too. It's one of the ways we connect. But that night, something shifted. It wasn't in the quiet rhythm of her breath or the warmth of her presence beside me. It was in the room, in the eyes that watched, in the silence that followed once the movie ended and she had gone upstairs. It was what came after that changed everything. My wife and I had invited her parents over for a casual evening. Pizza, wine, a family movie night with all three of our kids. 15-year-old, 12-year-old, and our youngest, 7. By the end of the movie, we sent the kids off to bed. The adults lingered, drinking, chatting, winding down, and then it dropped. Out of nowhere, my father-in-law, wine glass in hand, leaned forward and said he thought it was inappropriate for me to cuddle with my teenage daughter. I laughed, thinking he was joking, thinking this was just a slip of the tongue, something silly said under the haze of red wine. But then my wife nodded, and my mother-in-law agreed. In that moment, I felt something cold twist in my gut. They weren't joking. They were serious. They thought something was wrong. Not just wrong, but inappropriate. And in that single moment, everything warm about that night turned sour. I didn't yell. I didn't shout. But I looked at them, my in-laws, who I loved, who I respected, who I'd trusted more than my own parents. I looked at my wife, the woman I'd built a life with, and I said the only thing that felt true in that moment: fuck off and go fuck yourselves. Then I got up and I left the room. I went to bed and I didn't look back. It was the first time I'd ever spoken to them like that. I'm not proud of the words, but I don't regret them either. Because in that moment, what they were suggesting wasn't just offensive. It was vile. They weren't commenting on parenting styles or differing opinions on affection. They were accusing me, silently, implicitly, but unmistakably, of something monstrous. Of being the kind of man who would touch his daughter inappropriately. Of being the danger. Of being a threat. They didn't say it out loud, but they didn't have to. It was in the tone, the phrasing, the way they looked at me after she laid her head on my chest. I can still feel it. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Because what they saw wasn't a father and daughter sharing a quiet, familiar bond. What they saw, or chose to see, was something twisted. They projected something sick into a space that, for 15 years, had only ever been safe. And then they demanded an apology from me for my language, not for the accusation, not for the implication, not for the moment where 3 people I trusted looked me in the eye and decided I couldn't be trusted with my own child, but for the words I used when I pushed back. They wanted me to be the problem. They still do. Over the following days, we talked. My wife and I, her parents, calmly, quietly, and I learned more than I wanted to. Their reasoning, which I won't share here, is personal. But I'll say this: it had nothing to do with anything I've done. Nothing my daughter has ever said. Nothing that happened that night. It had everything to do with them, their experiences, their fears, their pasts. But even with that understanding, even with that context, I can't let go of what was said. Because no matter how personal their reasoning was, it doesn't erase the damage it did to me. It doesn't change what it did to the way I look at my wife when we sit in the same room. It doesn't change the fact that for the first time in my life, I don't feel trusted by the person I've shared everything with. That's what cut deepest. Not the in-laws, not the insinuation, but her. She never said a word before that night, never looked at me funny, never brought it up in private. But in that moment, when her father spoke up, she agreed, without hesitation. And even now, I don't know what that means. I love her. I always will. But I'm not going to apologize. Not for being angry. Not for standing up. Not for saying, with every ounce of fury I had, exactly what I felt. Because when someone accuses you of something unspeakable, there's only so much calm you can muster. There's only so much restraint you owe. And maybe, just maybe, sometimes the only response left is the one that ends the conversation. Because some lines, once crossed, don't deserve polite rebuttals. Some lines deserve fire. So, am I the asshole? That one hit hard. A story like this doesn't just challenge our emotions, it challenges our culture. We tell fathers, be present, be tender, be involved. But then, sometimes, when they show softness, affection, vulnerability, we flinch. We question it. We let our fears and traumas fill the silence, and we forget to ask, what does love look like when it's not performative? When it's real? When it's daily? This father didn't break any boundaries. His daughter came to him. She felt safe. She felt loved. And that comfort, that bond, that trust, it should be sacred. But instead, he got accused. Silently. Insidiously. And worst of all, by people who were supposed to know him best. So here's the question we leave you with. Have we gone so far in fearing the worst that we've forgotten how to see the good? Have we forgotten that sometimes a cuddle is just a cuddle? Tell us what you think. Was he wrong to speak that way? Or was that the only language left when something pure was dragged through the mud? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is AITA Story Vault. Real people, real stories, and the questions that stay with you long after the story ends.